All right, so today I have a pair of Velocity Gear Maestro-White boxing gloves in 16 ounce. These gloves I got specifically because I saw them on Facebook. I thought they were a super sharp looking glove, and in my opinion, I think they did a really good job at designing the glove. Now, this glove, I know it says that it's designed in Florida, right? It says it here, designed in Miami, Florida. And the 16 ounce indicator is on the bottom here with the patch, which I actually do like. I like the fact that they put it on the patch. I like that better than having a small little tag on the bottom of the glove. But as you can see, it says designed in Miami, Florida, 16 ounce Maestro Collection, Velocity Gear with their nice little logo and all that stuff. Now I'm going to weigh them here to make sure that they're actually 16 ounces. I haven't weighed them yet. So we will see. So I am going to weigh this left glove. And the left glove is 15.27. And this right glove is going to be 15.13. So they're underweight. The gloves are underweight for 16 ounces. Anything that's over like a half ounce underweight, I kind of get uncomfortable with. These are very much closer to 15 ounces. Maybe people don't care, but I think it's a little bit of a bigger deal, especially if you're sparring. If it's a glove that's kind of considered a sparring glove, which I believe these gloves are. Now, in terms of where these gloves are actually made, not just designed, it feels like a Pakistan-made glove, but I can't be sure. Ultimately, I'm not going to go ahead and say exactly where they're actually made from, but they feel like a Pakistan-made glove for sure. I know that like 70-80% of boxing gloves nowadays are made in Pakistan, and this leather feels very similar to that. So I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. When it comes to the leather itself, it's just going to be a genuine cowhide leather, and it's very smooth. So you have this kind of shiny, smooth, surface here. It doesn't have much texture. It's just very comfortable and smooth. And I would say that, it's very comfortable. When it comes to how thick it is, it's not very thick in terms of the thickness of the leather. This actually kind of reminds me of the leather I would find in like a power lock glove. You know what I mean? Power lock gloves type thing, where you might feel like it's durable enough, but it's not exactly the thickest leather. But in terms of the color of the glove, I think they do a good job. It doesn't look like it's splotchy in terms of how they colored the leather and all that types of stuff. It has a really nice overall look to them. When it comes to the liner feels like a tricot liner. Ultimately, it just has a soft feeling. It feels like a tricot liner. It could be all, a different type of liner that they make themselves that's mixed with all types of stuff. But ultimately, it has that nice, soft kind of silky feel. The liner is comfortable, and it's a little bit on the warmer side, but I think this is a very comfortable liner. I think most people would think it's a very comfortable liner. I don't think many people would be disappointed at this liner whatsoever. When it comes to the padding, they call this kind of like a pillowy soft padding, right? So they say it's a custom hand layered foam core, right? I'm just gonna assume it's a multi-layered foam. But if I were to I want to get to, how the padding feels a little later. But ultimately, when they say it's like a pillowy glove, I believe it. It has that sparring glove feel. That's one thing that I could definitely say about the glove, that it does have that feel. It feels like essentially a sparring glove, a nice pillowy padding sparring glove. But it definitely feels protective as well. When it comes to the size profile, I think these gloves are right where they need to be. They're definitely not large. I would say you can consider them compact. Some people might if they're a little bigger, but I would say they remind me of. Actually, let me see. Let me compare this to Power Lock. I have a Power Lock 2 here, This is a Power Lock 2. And you can see that they're very similar in terms of size profile. So when it comes to that, I think that the Power Lock 2s were never ultimately a big glove at all. I think that they're kind of a compact 16 ounce, a little bit medium to compact, and I feel that the same with these gloves as well. I think that they're closer to medium, maybe a tad bit bigger than the Power Locks in terms of the width, but that's about it. When it comes to the style, now this is the reason why I bought these gloves, is the style of the glove. So I think that they did a fantastic, whoever designed the glove, I think did a fantastic job in terms of style. So when I'm looking at this glove, I go, okay, this is the kind of glove this is. So this patch here kind of reminded me of like a Leone patch, right? Where you get that big old patch here. It's very classy looking. And then they did a good job on their logo and then putting their company name right there on the glove is obviously never a bad thing to do. And also just ultimately this kind of curved angled lace system here that they have here kind of reminds me of a rival glove, obviously, but you know, ultimately it's a sharp looking glove. Even the gold is very shiny gold here. You know, it's not like the gold you might see on certain gloves that might have a gold that kind of doesn't necessarily feel like a real gold. It's not as shiny as this. It's not, you know, it doesn't have that nice, you know, glow to it. So I think they did a really good job. Even the laces being red, you know, I don't really necessarily, I always like to change the laces on my gloves, especially if I'm taking the gloves out and it's more serious, because the gloves get dirty, they get grimy, and different color laces might be able to not show that. So ultimately the red laces I think is a really good touch as well. So when it comes to that, I think they did a really good job on the style of the glove. That's why I bought them. Nobody knows, I don't even know anybody who's actually looking at these gloves or reviewing these gloves, and no one's asked me to review them. So it's obviously a glove that I wanted to buy because I thought they looked really good. So ultimately they caught my eye, so I believe that they did a really good job in terms of style. Now, in terms of the wrist padding, now this is something that is a little weird. So the wrist padding on the back end here, the right glove is actually perfectly fine, and you could actually see it. There's like a good amount of wrist padding on the back portion, probably about a half an inch, maybe a little bit more. But you can actually see that there's like this thick piece of foam on the inside here. And it's probably the size of the logo here. And they put it in the back, and it's kind of moving around a little bit. So ultimately, it does a good job, a decent job of having like this firm portion on the back, but it ultimately is a little bit soft on the back as well. Like I could fold the back of this glove, so it's not really a rigid padding on the back end. And also on the inside padding, it's very soft as well. They have decent amount of padding in terms of protection, but it's not going to make sure that you essentially keep your hand in a and aligned. Essentially, it's kind of very flimsy when it comes to that. A lot of gloves are, and actually some people prefer that, but that's just something I'm just bringing up to the table. That this is not exactly the most firm wrist ever. But the problem I have with the wrist is that this portion is different, and the reason why is because on the left glove, as you can see, the foam is it's a smaller piece of foam. It's two pieces of foam. So one's like this size and then one's like this size. I think they're supposed to be together, but they're not. And essentially, I don't know if they broke apart and they're just like, just basically sliding around in there. But there's two pieces of foam on the back end here that are basically sandwiched on top of each other. And there's less of a surface for the back end. I don't know if that makes any sense, but ultimately, like, the foam is essentially like this big on the back, and all this is just padding, you know what I mean? So that hard piece of foam that I was talking about, that's supposed to be a square, it looks like it might have broke. So I'm just gonna make the guess that it broke, and I'm just not gonna, hopefully they didn't just, you know, give me one that they just put 2 pieces of foam in there and thought that they were just gonna stay in the same spot. But basically there's 2 pieces of foam, of hard foam in here. I don't know if it's EVA or not, and there's one big square piece in here. So already, right off the bat, the right glove is made better than the left glove. So that being said, I'm gonna go into the grip bar portion of the glove. I don't mind this at all. I think the grip bar is actually a really good size, and I think it's a really good firm, medium firmness, and a really good, decent size there. I don't mind the grip bar at all. There is no air holes on the top or bottom or even on the thumb portion of the glove, as you can see. Not a big deal. A lot of gloves don't have them. I prefer them, especially when you're dealing with a liner that is soft like this. I prefer having air holes on the thumb and the fingers and even in the palm area right here, because I believe that ultimately you're going to end up sweating. And all the help you can get when it comes to a softer liner. So essentially that's a thing too. The thumb, as you can see, it's a detached thumb here. There's a little bit of pulling on the stitching. You know, I see that, I notice it. It's not a huge deal. Doesn't look like it's going to break apart, but nothing fancy with the thumb. It's a pretty decent thumb, probably medium in size, medium to large. I don't mind the thumb at all. I think it's actually a really good thumb. It's very, very comfortable. So I have no problem with that. Now, when it comes to this portion right here, I don't know if you've seen this, guys. This right here is like a problem for me, because it's not just like a piece of thread that came out. It was a piece of thread that was here into this portion of the glove and attached on the inside of the glove, and it was like messing with my 2 inner fingers. And when I was using it, eventually it broke off, and then it became this piece of thread that became really long on the outside. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this isn't my first pair of gloves that I bought from them. Essentially, the first pair of gloves were actually really good condition, except for one big flaw on the thumb attachment portion. There was kind of like a stitch problem, and there was a hole. Now, when I wanted to return it, essentially they said they believed it was a carrier issue. It wasn't their issue. They said that it wasn't an issue of theirs because they have people inspecting gloves before they send them out. Now, I know better because I buy a lot of gloves, and I knew that it was an issue with the stitching. It wasn't an issue with whoever delivered the glove. So when I got these gloves, I was kind of disappointed because I still had issues with the quality control of the glove. Now, one thing I'm going to talk about in this video is that even the inner liner of this glove is bunched up on the left glove, and it bunches up and has to be sandwiched in between my 2 fingers, and it's not the same on the right glove. So there's obviously, the left glove was never made as good as the right glove. Now, if they were made the same and the right and the left glove were made exactly the same, I would say that they did a really good job. But this is my second pair, and it's also the second pair is something I have quality control issues with. Even, you know, I had quality controls with the first pair and the second pair is what I'm trying to say. So ultimately, it becomes a little bit of an issue. Now, other than that, the stitching on the glove is double stitched all the way around here, and they did a really good job on the palm side. And I love the double reinforced stitching on the glove and all the way towards the grip bar, and that's really good as well. Now, you might see some pulling here on the outer end here, and you might see some pulling on this side as well, but that's kind of normal. I don't think that's a humongous deal, you know, so just keep that as it is. Now, I'm going to put my hands in this glove. I'm going to put my hands in the right. Actually, I'll put it in the left glove so I can tell you guys what I'm talking about. So ultimately, when you put your hands in the glove, it's ultimately really comfortable. right? Once you slide your hand in, because the liner itself is very comfortable. The glove itself is very soft, so it kind of fits, you know, very softly. It's not like a really stiff glove. Now, like I said, I have this big bunching up of liner in between my index finger and my middle finger, and I'm holding it like this while I have to make a fist, just to keep it at bay. Now, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it's noticeable. Now, in terms of the thumb, I think they did a fantastic job on the thumb. There is no pulling on the thumb here. I could grasp down, and you can see that there is no pulling on the thumb. So I have no problems with the thumb jamming or anything like that. So keep that in mind. When it comes to just the overall hand compartment, you could definitely put hand wraps in here, your knuckle guards. It's not too snug. It's actually probably a real perfect medium. You can put whatever you want in here and you'll be perfectly fine. This glove will fit large hands as well. Essentially, when I get to the fingertip compartment, this portion of the glove where the stitching is, I don't feel any stitching. It feels like they put this maybe like a flat layer of, I don't know what the flat layer is. I would say it's just covering up the stitching really well. It's not a secondary grip bar whatsoever, but it's more of like a flat surface for your fingertips. I don't want to say it's neoprene because it doesn't feel like neoprene. It just feels like they covered up the stitching with probably maybe leather. I'm not sure, but ultimately it's pretty solid. Now, when it comes to opening and closing your hands, I think this glove does a really good job. It's a softer glove, so as you can see, I could open and close my hands no problem. Parry shots and things like that. They did a fantastic job about that. Yeah, so ultimately, I think it's comfortable. You know, if this glove was the same as this glove, I'd say it's pretty much a super solid, but it's not necessarily. Now, when it comes to little small things that I can nitpick, let's say like the laces, right? The laces are too short, as you can see, and they don't even align with each other essentially. Like these laces, as you can see right here, it's like one is longer than the other. So whoever put the laces on originally, and it's the same way with both gloves. Look at this one. This one's even worse. So you can see that, look at how much there's extra here and here. So, you know, whoever put the laces on, you know, it's like, okay, come on, guys. You know, put it on a little better. Has the plastic tips, really thick laces. Not really a stretch, but really thick, and it's like a quality lace. It's not a, you know, bad one whatsoever. Now, when it comes to the padding, like I was going to talk about before, has a kind of a nice medium padding, but it is like a pillowy glove. Like it reminds me a little of like a winning padding a little bit. It has that feel. Like it's very protective on your hands, but very protective on your sparring partners as well. So I do like that. And it has like you can see it. I think it's probably one of the better features of the glove is that they did a really good job with the padding, the multi-layer padding. I want to know what the padding necessarily is. I'm not sure what it is, but they did a really good job. Now, when it comes to like that pop, it has that. You know, it has that a decent pop, but it's not going to have that same crazy pop you're going to get from a horsehair glove or anything like that. It's going to have more or less, you know, the pop that you would get from a foam glove. It also depends on, you know, what you're punching, stuff like that. So ultimately, you know, it's up to you. You know, I don't want to say it's. I wouldn't suggest, if I'm going to talk about the performance here, I would suggest you leave this glove for a sparring glove. And in terms of like the bags and stuff like that, you could use it, but I'm not sure how the durability will be with a softer glove like this. You know, it's a pillowy type of padding and all that kind of stuff. I just think this glove really shines when it comes to sparring. So if I had to choose, I would say this is a fantastic sparring glove. Everything else, I would say, you know, you could use it, but you're probably better off, you know, buying two gloves and one for the bags and one for sparring. In terms of the price, it's at $134. So it's pretty well priced. $134 is really good for a glove. And I think that, you know, a beginner glove is a fantastic price for a beginner glove. And I think that it checks off a lot of boxes, essentially. If they didn't have those kind of quality control issues, I would recommend it. But because I got two gloves that didn't pass the quality control issue, I don't know if I can fully recommend it, but I want to review it because I think that they have a really good product in terms of styling, in terms of padding, in terms of a lot of things. But they just have to just hone in on you know, making sure that the gloves that are going out are essentially, you know, they're not messed up in any way. You know what I mean? Make the laces a little longer. Make sure that, you know, the gloves don't have parts like this coming out, you know, all that kind of stuff. So ultimately, I think that the glove itself is really sharp looking glove, designed in Miami, Florida. You know, really, really, you know, ultimately, if you want to look sharp, I think it's a good glove. But just from, in my perspective, just if I were to tell the company something, it's just make sure the gloves are, you know, they're good to go when you send them out. And don't just, you know, send out anything, essentially. But that's my review.